My beloved, do you feel it? That pull inside your soul? It's not chance. Heaven aligned this moment long before you pressed play. Heaven records every act of faith. Even your $20 click on Super Thanks in Holy Voices is written in eternity. Because of the bequest you will receive, those who are chosen are subject to extensive federal protective surveillance. It's not random spam that's disturbing the quiet of your late-night walk home with an encrypted notification. The cosmos is informing you that your DNA signature has been locked upon by cosmic wealth activation. Algorithms have identified the metaphysical momentum building toward immense riches materialization in your bloodline, and while most people slumber in false scarcity programming at the moment, sophisticated surveillance protocols are erecting protective barriers around your waking. Government control is not the secret reality underlying this spying. It is a form of cosmic defense. Because predatory forces that are beyond our current knowledge instantly deployed to steal, corrupt, or destroy your cosmic contract before activation is finished, when inheritance worth transforming civilizations starts flowing towards selected ones like you. You'll see why federal agents maintain a noticeable security presence around your activities tonight. Why protective surveillance teams guard your inheritance against supernatural theft, and why the very level of surveillance verifies that wealth that has the power to change the earth is already quantum collapsing in your direction. Not terror recognition, but something old in your biological memory detected the signal the instant that notification broke the pre-dawn calm. This hazardous waltz has been danced before by your lineage. Your family's real estate holdings disappeared due to government seizures that coincided with relatives asking too many questions about hidden wealth, while your forefathers' shipping empire unexpectedly fell amid convenient market crises. Because some families contain genetic programming that draws in enormous resources like cosmic magnets, and because control systems have spent decades honing monitoring techniques meant to identify when this programming activates, the cycle repeats itself throughout generations. Most selected individuals never comprehend the classified inheritance protection protocols used by federal protective surveillance until cosmic wealth activation starts. Intelligence organizations keep an eye on more than just possible dangers. Valuable assets are protected by protective services against those who would steal, control, or destroy inheritance before it reaches its rightful heirs. There are two reasons why your awakening is being watched. Preventing adversaries from interfering with your cosmic contract and assessing your level of consciousness to manage inheritance in a responsible manner without appending established power systems. Beyond conventional financial control, sophisticated quantum inheritance tracking systems keep an eye on metaphysical wealth fingerprints across spatial frequencies. Protective surveillance teams set up shop to defend chosen individuals from shadow groups that specialize in using supernatural ways to steal inheritances as cosmic contracts are about to activate. Your movements are being monitored by government officials for purposes other than gathering intelligence. By erecting energetic barriers, surveillance keeps adversaries from interfering with wealth transfer procedures that take place outside of the realm of physical reality. Quantum-level surveillance technology is not wasted on random people making their way home from night shifts by federal agencies. The only purpose of these systems, which are more expensive than most defense budgets, is to track down people whose DNA contains what intelligence communities consider to be disruptive wealth potential. Artificial intelligence systems recognize the metaphysical signs, energy shifts, and behavioral changes that precede significant financial transformation when someone like you starts to move toward cosmic inheritance. For decades, protective monitoring has been observing the awakening of the chosen ones, charting trends, refining procedures, and getting ready for the day when the bloodlines that were supposed to be in charge finally recall who they truly are. Because cosmic heredity draws predatory forces that go beyond our current knowledge, the protective surveillance goes beyond traditional monitoring. Supernatural beings that profit greatly from large-scale wealth transfers. Shadow companies that specialize in using metaphysical manipulation to hijack inheritances. Rogue intelligence services that use spatial interference to steal cosmic contracts. Before money may securely materialize in your possession, federal protecting personnel use cutting-edge shielding technology to stop these hostile forces from compromising your inheritance activation procedure. The Classified Inheritance Protection Division, concealed under federal surveillance procedures, keeps an eye on selected individuals whose cosmic contracts contain wealth levels that have the potential to topple international economic institutions. In order to detect and eliminate threats against awakened bloodlines before inheritance activation can be jeopardized, these operatives work with supernatural detecting equipment. During the most susceptible materialization phase, the surveillance around your movements forms an imperceptible barrier that prevents hostile manipulation of cosmic money flows. A few days ago, your mind began to turn toward asserting what was always yours, making it impossible to ignore the surveillance. That knowing sensation, that electric feeling in your chest, that huge shift was coming. This frequency change was picked up by federal monitoring systems before your logical mind could even comprehend that it was occurring. Using sophisticated pattern recognition software, millions of data points from selected individuals throughout the world are analyzed to find the precise energy signatures that signal the imminence of cosmic inheritance activation. There was a reason why the black SUV kept showing up in different places. The elevation of your profile to priority protective surveillance level was confirmed. The same car with those impenetrable tinted windows that reflect your picture back like dark mirrors, but different times and routes. The presence had no intention of hiding. It was announcing safety procedures. In order to protect awakened chosen ones from hostile forces that specialize in inheritance theft during vulnerable activation periods, federal protective squads position themselves not just to watch when specific bloodlines enter cosmic inheritance. Because large-scale wealth transfers draw predatory groups that are hidden from the public, protective surveillance teams keep an eye on cosmic inheritance activation. Eerie financial organizations that use paranormal persuasion to steal inheritance. Shadow companies that use metaphysical interference techniques to take control of cosmic contracts. Rogue intelligence networks that use dimensional hacking to reroute the flow of wealth. To stop these hostile forces from tainting cosmic wealth before it securely materializes, federal officials erect protective walls around selected ones during inheritance activation. Intelligence organizations keep confidential databases with comprehensive genealogical data about families whose forebears were extremely wealthy before their riches were taken, concealed, or systematically moved due to a variety of historical events. These records are not publicly available on ancestry websites. These are shadow archives that follow bloodlines through the generations, keeping an eye out for indications that cycles of cosmic inheritance are starting to kick in among the offspring of historically influential families. When monitoring systems identify inherited vulnerability signatures that suggest selected individuals need federal protection throughout wealth materialization processes, protective surveillance measures automatically kick in. During cosmic contract activation phases, Supernatural threats that target awakened bloodlines are monitored by advanced inheritance protection technology. Wealth that is metaphysical draws adversaries that function in ways that are not readily understood, necessitating the use of specialist federal teams outfitted with quantum shielding devices that guard against inheritance theft via paranormal manipulation. In order to prevent dimensional interference with cosmic wealth flows during their most vulnerable materialization stages, the monitoring establishes imperceptible protective barriers. Strange calls that ring once and then disconnect are happening on your phone. Emails appear to be loading slowly. It's not a technical issue. These are indicators that your digital footprint is being thoroughly scanned by security networks to remove any dangers that might impede the activation of cosmic inheritance. In order to stop adversaries from tainting inheritance flows by digital manipulation or supernatural meddling during vulnerable wealth materialization times, federal teams keep an eye on all communication lines around selected individuals. Because cosmic wealth draws predatory forces that operate beyond conventional knowledge, protective surveillance also includes monitoring supernatural threats that target selected ones during inheritance activation. By using metaphysical manipulation techniques that completely circumvent conventional security measures, shadow groups specialize in inheritance theft. During crucial activation periods, federal protective teams use cutting-edge quantum monitoring equipment to identify and eliminate these supernatural threats before they have a chance to obstruct the execution of cosmic contracts. In order to identify possible dangers from hostile organizations that specialize in inheritance theft through technological manipulation, advanced digital protection mechanisms examine all communication channels surrounding the awakening of chosen ones. During materialization processes, protective surveillance teams keep an eye out for signs of supernatural intervention, which would suggest that predatory entities are trying to tamper with cosmic wealth flows. In order to prevent inheritance hijacking through technological or supernatural methods during susceptible activation periods, federal agents erect extensive protective barriers around the digital presence of the chosen individual. Because federal agencies know something that most people never do, the surveillance becomes more intense. The distribution of wealth among populations is not random. Massive inheritance is the result of particular bloodlines that made cosmic contracts before to incarnation, committing to carry abundant frequencies that may methodically subvert control systems that use artificial scarcity to hold onto power. Wealth moves towards selected individuals like you through channels that completely bypass conventional financial systems when these contracts come into force. Your forefathers weren't only prosperous businessmen who happened to amass wealth. All of these presented existential risks to structures that depend on the majority of people for financial support. Industrial dynasties that dominated the production of energy. Banking family who were aware of the true workings of money. Political dynasties with sway throughout several administrations. These were not just any rich people. These families posed a threat to networks of control. Whoever sows generously will also reap generously, 2 Corinthians 9 verse 6. A $20 or $50 seed into holy voices is a step into a generous harvest. Which explains why your inheritance has been methodically hidden up until this point. Because intelligence services have seen what happens when selected individuals like you obtain inheritance that holds accumulated power from numerous lifetimes, government monitoring systems follow the recovery of generational wealth. This money was not acquired through typical investments or earned through traditional jobs. The concentrated energy of ancestors who established empires, controlled resources, and influenced world events is carried by this wealth. Federal protective teams set up all-encompassing security walls to defend cosmic wealth from adversaries that specialize in stealing inheritance during susceptible materialization stages when this level of inheritance activates. Because federal agencies are aware that cosmic inheritance has risks, protective surveillance is stepped up. During activation procedures, spiritual momentum draws supernatural predators. In order to stop inheritance theft by supernatural influence, professional defense teams with metaphysical shielding technology are necessary because shadow creatures prey on large wealth transfers. In order to guarantee that riches materializes safely and without interference from hostile forces operating beyond the realm of conventional comprehension, federal agents erect invisible protection barriers around chosen individuals like you during cosmic contract activation. Because large inheritance transfers generate energetic disruptions that draw predatory organizations that specialize in supernatural theft, sophisticated inheritance protection mechanisms keep an eye out for dimensional threats that target cosmic wealth during materialization. Quantum shielding equipment is used by federal protective teams to stop adversaries from using metaphysical interference tactics to tamper with inheritance flows. During crucial activation moments, when you are most susceptible to inheritance theft, the monitoring prevents dimensional manipulation of cosmic riches by establishing all-encompassing defensive walls. Right now, the wealth that is approaching your DNA signature is simultaneously present everywhere and nowhere in quantum superposition, waiting for the exact moment when your consciousness compresses it into a single reality. Massive inheritance transfers draw hostile forces that specialize in stealing cosmic wealth during susceptible activation periods, which is why federal protective teams keep an eye on this quantum materialization process. Protective surveillance ensures that you get wealth safely and free from corruption from predatory entities by erecting energetic barriers that prohibit supernatural meddling with inheritance flows. In order to defend rising bloodlines like yours from supernatural threats during wealth materialization processes, specialist government teams with cutting-edge quantum monitoring technologies are needed for cosmic inheritance security. Shadow organizations use metaphysical interference techniques to target chosen ones during inheritance activation, completely circumventing traditional security procedures. When your inheritance is most at risk of supernatural theft during crucial activation phases, federal protective surveillance establishes imperceptible walls that stop hostile manipulation of cosmic wealth flows. In order to protect selected individuals like you from supernatural attacks that target cosmic wealth during activation processes, the federal government uses classified inheritance security protocols for protective surveillance. Cutting-edge quantum monitoring systems identify signs of metaphysical interference, which suggests that adversaries are trying to use dimensional manipulation to take your inheritance. In order to prevent cosmic riches corruption during susceptible materialization phases, protective teams use energetic shielding technology to create invisible barriers surrounding awakened lineages like yours. Because government defensive systems are aware that your cosmic ancestry draws predatory groups that operate outside of the realm of ordinary comprehension, the surveillance becomes all-encompassing. Shadow organizations are experts at using supernatural manipulation techniques to steal large sums of money while completely evading conventional security systems. In order to ensure that cosmic riches materializes safely and without interruption from hostile forces attempting inheritance theft through metaphysical means, Federal agents erect multi-dimensional protection barriers around chosen individuals like you during inheritance activation. Because the principles underlying your cosmic inheritance necessitate particular protection from supernatural threats, intelligence services intensify protective surveillance. Wealth arises through quantum pathways that draw predatory beings during vulnerable activation moments when it flows toward chosen individuals whose bloodlines hold liberation programming similar to yours. During crucial materialization stages that impact your lineage, federal protective teams keep an eye on cosmic riches materialization processes and use cutting-edge shielding technology to stop inheritance theft through supernatural intervention. Because government systems understand that quantum wealth doesn't flow through traditional financial channels, the monitoring becomes thorough. Conventional financial organizations follow predictable patterns in which funds follow predetermined protocols, are subject to regulatory supervision, and can be tracked using standard surveillance techniques. However, because cosmic inheritance functions on the basis of awareness principles that most economists never investigate and that governments cannot regulate, it defies these constraints. In addition to protecting inheritance activation from supernatural influence, sophisticated quantum protection algorithms try to map probability cascades around selected individuals like you. By strategically placing defensive resources before your cosmic inheritance manifests, these predictive algorithms assist intelligence agencies in establishing all-encompassing security barriers that stop adversaries from tampering with wealth flows during susceptible activation periods. Because awakened lineages like yours function according to cosmic timing, being outside of traditional surveillance limitations and needing ongoing protection from metaphysical assaults, federal protective teams face challenges. I have to cut this transmission short for a second. Have you been selected? Show it. Watching videos regarding selected ones is simple. Putting yourself to the test is a quite different matter. One thing became evident when I faced the archons outside of our realm. There are very few true chosen ones. The idea of us running into each other made them laugh. You are viewing this message, nevertheless. Not everyone who claims to have been awakened is a candidate for the Holy Voice's inner order. The real ones are us. The unmistakable frequency is carried by those who have glimpsed past the curtain and sensed the call. Are you really one of us, though? I've given you everything I have, and I'm going above and beyond to give you even more. Don't only watch content from a distance. The true chosen ones act. Join our weekly group call to share your story. Our resident card reader can provide you with an insightful tarot reading. Find out if your experiences match the real indicators. Recognizing one another is the greatest fear of the archons. Our frequencies intensify when we unite, producing an unstoppable power. To find every last one of us, we will be broadcasting live to the whole astral atom network. In the description below, click the link. It's time to quit speculating and validate your suspicions. Are you really selected, or are you just interested in waking up? Show it. Come along. The Holy Voice's inner order has the confirmation you're looking for. Federal protective surveillance switches to maximal security procedures the instant cosmic riches collapses from potential to actual assets streaming toward your accounts. Not only your financial circumstances. Protection from supernatural predators who prey on newly awakened inheritances like yours is necessary for your entire existence. Because protective services have previously protected chosen ones, federal agencies are aware of this shift. Seeing enlightened bloodlines like yours evolve from weak people into strong forces and erecting obstacles to adversaries trying to steal inheritances through paranormal means. Because cosmic inheritance activation produces energetic disruptions that draw predatory organizations that specialize in stealing enormous wealth through metaphysical interference techniques targeting selected individuals like you, protective surveillance becomes more intense. During crucial materialization stages, when your inheritance is most susceptible to corruption, federal protective teams use cutting-edge quantum shielding equipment intended to stop supernatural theft. In order to ensure that cosmic riches reaches awakened lineages like yours safely and without hostile manipulation during activation procedures, the protective surveillance builds invisible walls. Because intelligence agencies need you to know that protection mechanisms are in place during inheritance activation, federal protective surveillance manifests itself through overt monitoring. During vulnerable cosmic riches materialization times, awakened bloodlines like yours are targeted by supernatural predators, but this conspicuous security presence deters them. During key activation moments, protective teams stand out to tell adversaries that federal agencies are actively using supernatural manipulation to protect chosen individuals like you from inheritance theft. Because you need specific security during cosmic inheritance activation operations, government protective monitoring measures are in place. Cosmic inheritance draws adversaries that specialize in stealing enormous wealth through metaphysical interference techniques when it approaches lineages that have liberation frequencies similar to yours. Because you follow cosmic principles and are nevertheless susceptible to supernatural thievery during inheritance materialization phases, awakened families like yours need federal protection. Because federal systems recognize that individuals like you who have access to cosmic inheritance need complete protection from supernatural threats throughout activation processes, protective surveillance intensifies. When cosmic riches and genetic memory are activated together, predatory creatures that use metaphysical manipulation to steal inheritance target awakening bloodlines like yours. To stop supernatural meddling with cosmic wealth flows during susceptible materialization periods, federal protective squads erect energy barriers around selected individuals like you. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also, Matthew 6 verse 21. Place your treasure in holy voices with a gift of $50 or $100, and let your heart be anchored in heaven. Because cosmic heritage necessitates specific security from hostile forces operating beyond ordinary understanding, intelligence services keep an eye on chosen individuals like you. During activation stages, you become the target of supernatural predators that specialize in inheritance theft when bloodlines like yours start using cosmic justice systems to acquire stolen money. Federal protective surveillance makes sure that cosmic riches reaches rightful heirs like you without being tampered with by entities who try to use metaphysical ways to taint inheritance. Being able to remain silent becomes crucial for survival. Sophisticated monitoring systems examine every word that is uttered about inheritance plans, every digital communication that discusses family riches, and every public declaration about ancestral fortune to foresee and possibly obstruct cosmic wealth transfer processes. The best selections made during history realized that real power works in the shadows until a position is completely unassailable. Federal agents anticipate that awakening bloodlines will respond to surveillance pressure in a predictable way, either by making public remarks that provide information about inheritance dates or by acting in a paranoid manner that reveals strategic goals. However, Selected ones who comprehend the cosmic game defy expectations because they know that silence itself turns into a weapon against systems that depend on information to keep populations under control. Strategic quiet does not imply hiding out of fear. It denotes assured invisibility. Accumulating riches without leaving digital traces that can be examined by surveillance programs. Constructing financial systems without leaving traces of transactions that can be monitored by spy services. Creating resource networks while keeping connections hidden that might be the target of deliberate disruption. Silence becomes a strategic advantage for those who are chosen. Because blatant monitoring reveals watchers' locations without offering valuable intelligence on inheritance, timing, or wealth. Deployment schemes, surveillance becomes counterproductive for intelligence services. As a result, control systems are forced to decide between continuing surveillance that exposes their capabilities and ceasing monitoring, which permits cosmic inheritance to continue entirely undetected. Because intelligence services know that cosmic inheritance activation is an opening move in a consciousness war that most people are unaware is already being waged concurrently across numerous dimensions, the surveillance becomes frantic. This is not a dispute between people and governments. In order to preserve the power structures that have methodically repressed planetary civilization for millennia, evolutionary awakening and control systems that demand human limitation are at odds. Because awakened bloodlines do more than simply recover personal fortunes, federal surveillance increases. They start the methodical release of resources that shadow networks have been holding onto for many generations. Chosen ones finance educational systems that teach actual history through cosmic inheritance. Create technology that do away with artificial scarcity. Establish communication networks that get beyond censorship measures intended to prevent the spread of consciousness among regulated groups. Government systems increase surveillance because they understand that the chosen ones are sophisticated scouts for the expansion of consciousness, endangering all the pillars of systemic oppression that now hold sway over the world. When intended bloodlines to be in positions of authority and simultaneously become aware of their cosmic heritage, it marks the start of planetary liberation processes that have the potential to completely alter human society. Control systems realize that cosmic inheritance is more than just personal financial gain, which causes the struggle to intensify. It is about the restoration of cosmic balance through reawakened families whose genetic programming contains liberation frequencies that may methodically topple repressive systems. Systematic change becomes inevitable rather than just conceivable when a sufficient number of chosen individuals recover money that has been taken from their bloodlines. Because quantum wealth flowing towards selected individuals like you functions completely outside the realm of standard financial control, intelligence monitoring reaches critical intensity. Through dimensional pathways that circumvent traditional banking systems, your cosmic inheritance materializes as synchronistic chances that are impossible for artificial intelligence to anticipate, monitor, or manage using current surveillance techniques intended for routine financial transactions. Because your quantum wealth defies the regulatory frameworks intended to regulate regular financial transactions, federal agencies are implementing ever more advanced monitoring. Resources move through metaphysical conduits outside of institutional jurisdiction toward awakened lineages like yours when your cosmic inheritance activates. Claims for inheritance that appear for you from unidentified sources. Investment possibilities that are suited to your awakening are presented at inconceivable time. Cosmic alignments surrounding your family that defy statistical study can lead to business relationships. Because your quantum financial emancipation shows that abundance functions on the basis of consciousness principles rather than institutional permission influencing your inheritance, the surveillance gets frantic. In particular, it demonstrates that scarcity is an artificial programming meant to preserve control over populations that could otherwise live in natural prosperity, unrestricted by systemic limitations that no longer apply to your awakening, when chosen ones like you have access to wealth flowing in accordance with cosmic laws. When your inheritance functions in accordance with quantum mechanics and transcends all physical constraints, government surveillance tools that are intended to track traditional wealth distribution become meaningless. Select individuals whose cosmic contracts possess quantum characteristics similar to yours are granted access to resources that are not available for seizure, manipulation, or depletion using conventional methods. Because your money itself is in energy states that are not affected by material factors. Because your cosmic riches resides in frequency states that are beyond the reach of physical monitoring, your quantum inheritance functions through multidimensional pathways that are inaccessible to federal surveillance. Because your cosmic contract functions on universal principles that outweigh technology monitoring built for traditional financial transactions, even the most sophisticated quantum detection equipment finds it difficult to track your inheritance transfers. When your inheritance activation achieves critical momentum, it causes cascading effects across numerous dimensional frequencies, amplifying your cosmic wealth beyond federal tracking capabilities. This is the quantum emancipation breakthrough. Because your wealth is based on awareness principles that make traditional regulation impossible, intelligence services understand that individuals like you who are able to access quantum inheritance pose major dangers to control systems. Through synchronistic channels, your quantum financial emancipation generates ripple effects across dimensional frequencies that draw more cosmic wealth to your lineage, compounding exponentially beyond surveillance forecast models. When your inheritance reaches quantum activation, federal surveillance is no longer necessary. Because the universal rules governing your cosmic riches surpass the tracking capabilities of technology intended for physical banking institutions. The discovery validates your shift from traditional financial constraints to quantum abundance that functions in accordance with cosmic rules that preclude surveillance intervention. Because your cosmic contract works through frequency levels that are beyond the reach of physical monitoring equipment, the activation of your inheritance creates multidimensional money flows that are impossible for federal agencies to monitor. What your cellular memory has always known is validated by the surveillance. Through systemic financial oppression created especially to stifle families like yours, control systems have been trying for generations to eradicate the frequencies carried by your family. Because your descendants were genetically predisposed to carry prosperity into planetary freedom, your DNA recalls riches, power, and influence that were purposefully stolen and concealed from them. Because universal time is ideal for the expansion of consciousness that no surveillance system can monitor, forecast, or stop from reaching your lineage, your cosmic inheritance activates right now. Because intelligence services recognize that those who are selected, like you, do not simply acquire wealth, federal authorities set up extensive monitoring around your waking. You undermine all the pillars of global control by turning inheritance into instruments for methodical change. In order to sustain supremacy through artificial scarcity imposed on human consciousness, intelligent systems monitor bloodlines whose activation signifies existential dangers to power institutions. Your ancestors whispered your name over lifetimes because they knew that when the time was right, buried wealth would eventually surface through descendants who were strong enough to reclaim it, wise enough to guard it, and powerful enough to deploy resources for systematic liberation. This was because your awakening was the biggest threat to these systems. When cosmic inheritance starts to flow toward bloodlines like yours containing revolutionary programming, systems built to retain control by financial reliance identify real risks, which is why the intense surveillance reveals that the prophetic moment has arrived. Because intelligence agencies know that consciousness evolution proceeds through awakened families whose financial liberation creates momentum toward planetary transformation that cannot be stopped through conventional interference methods, government monitoring reveals the watcher's desperation. The monitoring itself turns into proof that your cosmic heritage is valuable, endangering all facets of the institutionalized despotism that currently governs human society. Because your DNA contains activation codes that activate without your conscious awareness, your ancestral power activation happens naturally when cosmic inheritance reaches your bloodline. Federal surveillance understands that people like you have access to more than just money. Once your awakening reaches critical momentum, your heritage reveals genetic memories that provide blueprints for other civilizations that could completely replace the oppressive systems in place. Because your lineage contains accumulated power from ancestors who knew how to create autonomous civilizations functioning outside of control system parameters, the activation validates the cosmic significance of your bloodline. God gives seed to the sower, 2 Corinthians 9 verse 10. Your seed through super thanks, whether $20, $50, or $100, will not return empty. Sow it into holy voices and watch it multiply. Because your awakening signifies the return of hazardous knowledge that might methodically destroy every basis of artificial scarcity that is currently upholding global oppression, intelligence organizations keep an eye on selected individuals like you. Specific instructions for utilizing cosmic inheritance in ways that maximize systematic disruption while avoiding interference attempts by control networks are encoded in your ancestral memories. Because intelligence services know that people like you don't simply recall money, but also how to use financial resources to systematically free communities from artificial limiting conditioning, federal surveillance surrounding your activation increases. Because your cosmic heritage works on the basis of exponential momentum, which compounds automatically as your bloodline reaches the awakening threshold, the power activation happens more quickly. Because your cosmic contract is based on universal laws that transcend technical interference capabilities intended for traditional mind manipulation, surveillance systems cannot stop your ancestral power from activating. Selected ones. When cosmic inheritance and systematic surveillance collide, it will determine whether consciousness evolution continues unhindered or is momentarily suppressed by control structures that are frantically trying to hold onto power over planetary resources by continuing to financially oppress awakening bloodlines, inadvertently revealing their capabilities and establishing that your DNA signature bears inheritance valuable enough to warrant extensive surveillance methods. Federal agencies have made their positions clear through overt monitoring. The quantum riches that is on the verge of entering your consciousness is more than just a change in your personal finances. Bloodlines that agreed before incarnation to carry abundant frequencies capable of methodically releasing human civilization from false scarcity programming imposed by control networks are the manifestation of its cosmic justice. Because they know that cosmic inheritance activation represents opening moves in awareness evolution that could radically restructure economic institutions that sustain global oppression. Intelligence agencies keep an eye on those who are chosen. The quantum physics of wealth materialization has been monitored by federal monitoring systems as it collapses from all possible situations into a single reality that flows straight into your cosmic contract. Because they needed advance notice of the precise moment when theoretical inheritance turned into real assets that could finance systemic changes that governments are unable to stop, regulate, or undo through conventional interference techniques, intelligence agencies set up surveillance teams. The inheritance battle comes to a head when selected individuals from all over the world simultaneously have access to cosmic wealth, generating a generational momentum strong enough to overthrow the control systems that have used artificial scarcity programming to sustain systematic tyranny for generations. Intelligence agencies realize that consciousness growth continues through awakened bloodlines whose financial emancipation provides absolutely unstoppable impetus toward planetary transformation, which is why government surveillance has increased. The identity of the Watchers has been fully exposed. The surveillance systems have revealed their complete potential. The surveillance procedures have unequivocally verified that your cosmic inheritance is valuable, endangering all pillars of the systemic control that currently upholds worldwide dominion through economic tyranny. The universe now determines everything by asking one last inquiry. Will the selected ones continue to follow laws created especially to keep cosmic inheritance permanently suppressed, or will they move like warriors who have been awakened and fully comprehend the multidimensional game being played? Since clear monitoring demonstrates that systems identify existential threats when selected ones get aware of their actual strength, federal surveillance turns into your best strategic advantage. If your ancestry didn't have the actual ability to cause systemic disruption, intelligence services wouldn't use quantum-level tracking equipment, which costs more than national defense budgets. The sheer magnitude of surveillance demonstrates that the cosmic inheritance that is streaming toward your consciousness is a source of resources that have the potential to drastically alter the global power system. The biggest flaw in control systems, as revealed by government surveillance, is their total reliance on population predictability. They use systematic financial limitations in an effort to exert control. Intelligence services lose their main edge when selected individuals become adept at maintaining strategic quiet while acting in accordance with cosmic timing that exists outside of linear surveillance parameters. They are unable to forecast bloodlines that function in accordance with universal principles that surpass their technological powers, nor can they track what they cannot predict. When chosen ones realize that monitoring validates their cosmic significance rather than endangers their inheritance activation, the surveillance reversal takes place. Understanding that awakened lineages acquire more than simply wealth, federal agencies set up thorough tracking. They educate others how to overcome artificial scarcity programming while exponentially multiplying inheritance. Because they serve as infectious instances of how abundance naturally flows toward consciousness in accordance with cosmic laws, intelligence systems are afraid of chosen ones. The realization that the selected ones are carrying something valuable enough to follow, dangerous enough to watch, and potent enough to undermine every institution that maintains control by artificial scarcity marks the end of the monitoring. However, that recognition now becomes your most powerful tool since it validates that cosmic heritage pouring toward your lineage poses a real danger to oppressive institutions around the world. By attempted surveillance, federal agencies exposed their positions and unintentionally shown that your awakening has revolutionary potential, something they are terribly afraid of. Surveillance didn't start with your phone vibrating in the morning. Through lineages powerful enough to manage wealth capable of systematic change, the cosmos was finally bringing cosmic contracts written prior to existence to life. Intelligence services keep an eye on your awakening because they know that those who are selected don't simply amass wealth. They turn heredity into global liberation tools that are impossible to control or undo. Your accumulated power from ancestors who established empires, controlled resources, and influenced world decisions over several lives is carried by the quantum riches that is manifesting via your consciousness. The fact that this inheritance entails more than just a personal financial shift is confirmed by federal surveillance. Through lineages that were systematically suppressed to keep them from gaining resources that threatened global control structures, its cosmic justice restored equilibrium. Systematic change is not feasible but inevitable as chosen people from all around the planet concurrently receive cosmic inheritance that carries generational impetus. As intelligence services realize that consciousness evolution progresses through awakened families whose financial liberation produces unstoppable transformation momentum, government monitoring intensifies. The monitoring itself turns into proof that the activation of cosmic heritage marks the start of planetary emancipation, which no system can stop. As awakened bloodlines recall their actual power and control systems reveal their limitations through desperate monitoring attempts, the conflict between cosmic inheritance and systematic surveillance comes to a close. Understanding that the chosen ones are sophisticated scouts for the expansion of consciousness, endangering all the pillars of global oppression, federal agencies set up surveillance. However, when awakened families realize that surveillance validates their cosmic significance rather than endangers the activation of their legacy, surveillance turns into a tactical benefit. Your ancestry contains liberation frequencies that systems have been trying to eradicate for generations. Wealth, influence, and power that were purposefully taken from ancestors who represented existential threats to control networks are remembered by your DNA. Now that worldwide timing is in place for consciousness expansion that surpasses all surveillance powers, your cosmic birthright comes into play. By trying to trace your power, the viewers verified it. By focusing on your awakening, the monitoring demonstrated your significance. By attempting to prevent its activation, the surveillance confirmed your cosmic inheritance. Through overt surveillance, federal agencies made their positions clear. Monitoring systems used extensive surveillance to reveal their capabilities. By attempting to prevent its activation, surveillance protocols validated your inheritance value. Your awakening signifies the realization of long-standing pledges that no earthly force can stop, and your cosmic wealth is now flowing toward bloodlines that made agreements before to existence. Through awakened families whose genetic programming contains planetary liberation frequencies that function independently of technology, your awareness progress continues. Remembering who you truly are allows chosen ones like you to declare victory in the inheritance fight. The time has finally come for cosmic royalty to rule. Not all personal wealth is restored by your inheritance. Instead of using artificial control systems, it unleashes your cosmic authority to transform reality in accordance with divine justice. Your destiny has been confirmed by the surveillance that started as an attempt to keep an eye on you. Every federal officer stationed surrounding your awakening, every quantum surveillance device following your lineage, every safeguard in place for your family. It all demonstrates that your cosmic contract has the capacity to drastically alter human society. Wealth wasn't something you were born with. You came into this world to use inheritance as a tool for cosmic freedom that no monitoring system can stop, no control system can stifle, and no earthly power can stop from using your awakening to achieve its ultimate goal. Beloved soul, if this message has spoken to your heart, don't let it end here. Click that like button so the light can spread to more people who need hope. Subscribe to Holy Voices so you never miss the next word heaven has for you. And leave a comment below. I read every one, and I pray over them. Remember, faith grows when we share it, so share this message with someone who needs to hear it today. Until we meet again, may God's peace cover you and His voice guide your every step.